spring of 2020. This book was born out of the COVID times, so this is where the story needs to start. In the early weeks, there were memes that played on our expectations as to how the world ends. A still from Mad Max or The Road set against the hoarding of toilet roll and the tedium of lockdown. As apocalypses go, the internet felt, this one was underwhelming. Yet the word apocalypse starts out meaning something else, a moment of revelation, the point at which hidden things are brought into the light. In that sense, we have surely been living in apocalyptic times. The COVID-19 virus and the reactions to it, both cultural and political, revealed and radicalized existing tendencies and tensions within our societies. It brought into view the gaps between the kind of world in which we find ourselves and the stories that we like to tell about it. It made it possible to see things we could only half make out before. What gets revealed depends on where you're standing, though. This book is an account of how the COVID years unsettled my assumptions, as someone who has spent much of his adult life talking to people about the trouble around and ahead of us, not least the kind of trouble that rides under the name of climate change. I've had no cause to question the part of the story of climate change that science is able to tell us. In that sense, I remain convinced that humankind is in deep trouble. But what became clear to me these past 3 years is that the way we talk about this trouble is making everything worse. The mobilization of fear and the language of emergency, the elevation of science into an article of faith and an overriding source of political authority. Even when the intentions are good, even when the sense of urgency is sincere and well-founded, these moves push forward the project of making this living planet and its inhabitants into an object of technological management and control. For those of us who want no part in this project, yet who remain convinced of the depth of the trouble that climate change represents, there is a need to find other ways of talking and other moves worth taking. What gets revealed depends on where you're standing. And Sweden has been a strange place to call home in these years, especially for those of us who were born elsewhere. As was widely and sometimes accurately reported, this was the one major Western country that didn't respond to COVID by following the path of lockdown. Life here did change. There were some restrictions and more advice. But as the months went by, I felt the gap widen between the reality outside my front door and the one that my friends and family elsewhere were inhabiting. Our governments made different decisions, and I saw the difference these decisions made to the people closest to me. So I'm grateful to have lived through these years in a country that didn't force its population to stay home, or encourage an overwhelming sense of fear, or make life hellish for anyone who hadn't been vaccinated. Yet none of this was obvious in the early going. What I remember from those first days and weeks are the conversations with friends, colleagues and acquaintances elsewhere who were deeply worried about the horror show that Sweden was headed for if its government didn't change course fast. I was worried, too, when I looked at the projections they sent me. It's hard to share the confidence in the Swedish system felt by those who grew up taking it for granted. That was true of life as an incomer to Sweden, even before the pandemic put us to the test. So through the early spring of 2020, I carried the fear that my friends elsewhere were right. I sat with the possibility that the society of which I was now a part was weeks away from collapse, and there was little I could do about it. I let this teach me something about vulnerability and the limits of what I can control. Whole books will be written about how Sweden came to take the path it did. Looking back now, you can argue over the consequences of that decision and whether the Swedish approach would have worked elsewhere. But what's clear is that the horror show we were told to expect never came to pass. Nothing even close to it. And to live through that was a powerful experience, the kind it's hard to know how you should feel about. It's an experience that left me cautious about the sudden uncertainties born of the COVID times. I took the vaccine with no particular misgivings. I've had no cause to regret it, and I don't subscribe to any alternative set of certainties about the science of the virus and the illness that it causes. But I reserve the right to be less scared than I'm told I should be, and less impressed by the latest declarations about what we know and what our governments have to do.